From the National Newsroom of the Canadian Press, I'm Karen Rebo. London, Ontario's police force is now facing scrutiny for sending a team to Dubai for an international competition in which members compete against a dubious Russian special unit. The London Police Services Board has launched a review of the approval process for the force's participation in the UAE SWAT Challenge competition late last month and early this month. The event saw the London police members train with and compete against Russia's special Akhmat unit from Chechnya, whose members are accused of committing atrocities in Ukraine. London's police service was the only Canadian force to take part in the challenge. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today pushed back hard against the U.S. vision for after the war, particularly its calls for the creation of a Palestinian state. After speaking yesterday with U.S. President Joe Biden, Netanyahu wrote on X that Israel will not accept international dictates regarding a permanent settlement with the Palestinians. The federal government committed to planting 2 billion trees across the country to restore natural habitats and fight climate change. Now Quebec wants to harvest some of them. The province is asking Ottawa to allow the local forestry industry to chop down trees in areas of the province hardest hit by last year's record-setting forest fires. A new report says British Columbia's wine industry is anticipating catastrophic crop losses of up to 99% of typical grape production due to last month's intense cold snap. A report from Wine Growers British Columbia and consulting firm Cascadia Partners says preliminary industry estimates are calling for crops to produce only 1 to 3% of typical yields for wine grapes. Winery owner Rolf de Bruin says only a handful of productive buds were found among the 70,000 plants at his operation in Lillooet after temps stayed around minus 20 for several days.
You have to put in all the work, and I can say that it's a financial burden. It's also a mental health burden. It's tough to go out there and do all this work knowing that at the end of this season, there's no fruit.
And it was an exhilarating winter's day for Prince Harry and his wife Meghan, as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex spent a second day in Whistler, BC, meeting with athletes and promoting the co-host city for next year's Invictus Games. Prince Harry reached speeds of almost 100 kilometers per hour as he raced down one of the world's fastest bobsled tracks in Whistler on a tiny skeleton sled. Meghan was seen with a huge smile and shock on her face watching her husband, the co-founder of the Invictus Games for wounded or sick service personnel and veterans, whiz by her at the end of the track. Cowbells rang out as the prince finished his run before he took off his helmet and said, "Everybody should do that." He tried out sit skiing the day before, and today they'll be in the other co-host city of Vancouver, where they'll meet athletes at a curling rink. This is the Canadian Press. In sports, the Edmonton Oilers lost for the third time in 5 games following their 16-game winning streak. The Oilers' Connor McDavid followed up on this week's 6-assist game by adding 3, but the Oilers lost 6-3 to the St. Louis Blues. William Nylander scored 54 seconds into overtime, and Austin Matthews had a natural hat trick in the second period as the Toronto Maple Leafs downed the Philadelphia Flyers 4-3. That gives Matthews an NHL-leading 45 goals on this season. Chris Kreider had a hat trick in leading the Rangers to a 7-4 win over Montreal. 4 points for Filip Zadina in San Jose's 6-3 victory over the Calgary Flames, and it was the Vancouver Canucks getting a 4-1 victory over Detroit. And in basketball, Klay Thompson came off the bench for the first time since his rookie season and knocked down 7 3-pointers and scored a season-high 35 points in leading the Golden State Warriors to a 140-137 victory over the Utah Jazz. From the Canadian Press, I'm Karen Rebo.